Hey Alexandra, how you doing today? Nice to see you.
I'm doing so well. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. How's your day been so far?
My day's been great. We finally got some sun here, so I'm a happy girl. What about you?
My day's been excellent. I can't complain. I can't complain at all. Yeah. So let the viewers know who you are, what you do, and why you do it, Alexandra.
Absolutely. So my name is Alexandra. I'm a matchmaker. I co-own and co-found my business, Introductions Inc. And I've been doing this for a very long time. It's really important to me that I have an opportunity to help and serve people when it comes to their dating lives. It's something that brings a lot of joy to me, and I hope that I can tell you a little bit more about it today.
For sure, for sure. So how did you get into that? What was the path that led you to choose that as the thing that you wanted to do?
Yeah, so I always knew I wanted to help people. I always knew that I wanted to do something kind of community oriented, but I just didn't know what it was. My mother is a social worker. My father works in the prison industry. So I knew that some sort of collaborative effort and community effort was important, but I'm not sure that I wanted to go that route. So when I got the opportunity straight out of school to kind of work for somebody who was in the industry, it just clicked. I just knew immediately that this was something that I could still have that community outreach, that coaching ability, that mentorship, but without some of the other aspects that didn't appeal to me as much. So basically, straight out of school, I got mentored into the industry and I never left.
Okay, interesting, interesting. Now, like we've all had like different struggles in terms of relationships. When we look at our previous relationships, there's been different struggles that everybody has had. What would you say some of your struggles have been in previous relationships, and how did you navigate through that?
Absolutely. So I'm a very anxiously attached person. A lot of that comes from my childhood. I was adopted at a very young age. So I have trouble sometimes with my connections and not being too anxiously attached to those people. But it's something that I've worked on a lot over the years and I've grown a lot with. So it's something that when I have a client who is similarly anxiously attached, I really enjoy being able to give perspective and give help in that area. So I would say that, it's a struggle, when you have some sort of attachment injury or trauma in your youth. But if we can all kind of take a look at what causes these traumas within ourselves, major and minor traumas, then we can really grow and have more successful dating lives overall.
Okay, cool. Let's take a look at that a little bit deeper. So, when you say anxious attachment, like what is it that makes you feel that you need to hold on to something that is not necessarily good for you? What's the root of that attachment, would you say?
Well, I know that in myself personally, my anxious attachment issues come from a lot of insecurity and a lot of unsureness in my social ability and in my romantic ability and how skilled I am in those areas. So when I was younger, I struggled to form meaningful connections because I was too shy and introverted, and I didn't have that deeper confidence and development within myself to have successful relationships. And that comes out in my case as anxiety because I feel like when somebody does like me or when I do have a successful relationship, I need to grip it really tightly because I might not get that again. Now, as an adult, I'm able to, recognize in that in myself and adjust accordingly. But it's one of those things that you have to actively work on to improve.
Right, for sure. Like a lot of people go through similar things where they feel that kind of insecurity, even in their adult life. So, what steps would you say you took, or that people can take to overcome these type of insecurities that they face?
Right. So it's a multi-pronged approach when it comes to improving your self-image. So the first thing we can do is to build confidence. And when we're building confidence, that generally means exposing yourself to situations where you don't feel confident and adjusting your internal expectations. So for me, for example, like a lot of my anxiety was social. So I tend to make a point to put myself in social situations or anxiety inducing situations to inure myself of those social situations, and eventually you become more confident and more able to perform adequately in a social setting, so to speak. Now, that's one part of it. Another part of it is a lot of deep introspection and finding what the actual problem is instead of what you think it is. So as somebody with internal insecurity, you might come to the conclusion that I can't date at all because I'm unlovable. Now, obviously, that's not a productive thought. That's not something that's actually driving me forward and allowing me to improve myself. So, what I have to really dig down is okay, what if that's not true? What if I am lovable, but people can't see what I'm offering and love me for that? So how do I adjust my behavior so people see what there is in me to love?
Excellent, excellent. So essentially, like the voice in people's head, it can be self-sabotaging a lot of the time. And when they actually put themselves out there, they can now get a realistic perspective of like where they are, and that can help build their confidence the more experience they get of putting themselves out there, so to speak. Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. And most importantly is to have honest introspection with yourself because your brain will lie to you. So you have to ask probing questions and really dig into these thought patterns and make sure that they are accurate.
Right, right. Excellent, excellent. Yeah, a lot of people like they've had previous relationships that have failed, right? And when they come out of these relationships, tend to feel the sense of shame and guilt about their relationship not working out the way they want to. Some see it as some type of failure, and they kind of like shy away from being able to express themselves. For people that have gone through this type of thing, what kind of ways can they start to become more expressive again and realize that, okay, that experience has happened and how can I move forward?
Right. So I think a really good step if you're feeling shame and or guilt about a previous relationship is to identify which of those you're feeling because that's very important because shame is unuseful. Feeling ashamed of what has happened is never going to help you improve. If you're feeling guilty about something because you have a genuine reason to, you had an impact on another person, your behavior was not to the standard you wished it to be, that you can improve on. So if you're feeling guilty about a past relationship, you can sit down and say, do I have reason to feel this guilt? Is there something I can do next time to make sure that I'm not putting myself and my partner in this situation again? And if so, you can start taking actionable steps to improve that going forward, which will help build your confidence. If you find that you don't have legitimate guilt, but rather you have an excessive shame, then you need to start sitting down and having more of that introspection and more of that self growth because at the end of the day, shame is not productive and it's internal work only, not external work.
Yeah, 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 yeah. No, I agree with that. That's well put together. So, like, for people that like they would like to get back into a relationship, they're currently like single, but they'd like to find someone, but their professional life has been their priority, right? So they've been focusing on their profession and they've really neglected their intimate nature, and they find it hard to balance their professional life and their personal life in terms of wanting to be intimate, wanting to interact. How can they go about balancing their professional life with their personal life and actually be able to express themselves and be their feminine and intimate self that they wish to be?
Absolutely. So that is something I see very commonly as a matchmaker. I have a lot of people coming to me saying, I focused on my career and now I've reached a point in my life where I want to be dating, but I have not developed that skill in my youth. And I'm starting at, 40, 45,
Right.
and now I need assistance with that. And there's nothing wrong with needing assistance. But you also have to keep in mind that if you want to have growth in an area of your life, you do have to put in effort. And at this point, the reason that you're not succeeding in dating is not because you're bad at it, but because you haven't put that effort in to learn that skill. So you've achieved that in your professional life, and that's something commendable. That's something that you decided to put effort into and you have succeeded. But now you have to put a similar amount of effort into the area of your life that you are trying to grow. So there's no time that's too late to start that process. But at the end of the day, you have to start that process on your own and put the time and investment into developing the skill of dating.
Yeah, like practice does make perfect at the end of the day. Like, regardless of what we're doing, if we're not practicing it, we can't get better at it. So that's a good point. Like, if all of their focus is on their profession, then obviously their personal life will become neglected in that process. Yeah, yeah. So, like we go out all the time, we see different people that we're attracted to, right? And there are different types of relationship types that people fall into as well. So, like in the context of human nature and the fact that we all see different people and we're attracted all the time, what is your viewpoint on monogamy versus non-monogamy?
Right. So as we move into a more modern phase of dating in the more modern age that we live in, ethical non-monogamy has become a lot more popular in the recent days. or at the very least, it's become a lot more publicized. We're seeing a lot more of it on social media and even on reality TV than we would have seen 20 or 30 years ago. Now, I will say that I think that there is a way to practice non-monogamy ethically. However, a lot of the times, the people that are attempting to do so are not able to make it completely ethical and not able to put in the amount of work and commitment and communication necessary to make that lifestyle work. But at the end of the day, it's your own personal decision of, again, like we discussed with putting effort into new skills. If you want to put effort into non-monogamy and make that a part of your lifestyle, if you're really committed, then there's no reason that you can't do that successfully. However, you have to also keep in mind that if you are non-monogamous, you have to pursue other non-monogamous people and not try to pull in monogamous people into that lifestyle, because it's a fundamental incompatibility.
Okay, okay. So you said like for non-monogamous people, they should pursue non-monogamous people. So what about the
Yes.
situation where there's a couple in a relationship that has been monogamous, but one partner is now considering non-monogamy and opening the relationship, but they don't necessarily want to leave their partner now. How can they communicate this to their partner that is like been monogamous with them without necessarily like causing too much disruption in the relationship going forward?
At the end of the day, when you take a big change in your lifestyle and you bring it to your partner, there will always be disruption. However, you will know if you've been with your partner a long time how that disruption will go if you really sit down and think about it. How many times have you had similar discussions? How have, if this has come up in a TV show that you're watching, or if you had a couple near you doing that, how did your partner react? You already know probably how this conversation is going to go. And if you know it's going to go badly, you know this is not something your partner wants, and it's going to be a tough sell, then you have to take a minute and think about, is this decision that I've made something so deeply impactful to me that I'm willing to risk my relationship? If
Okay.
the answer is yes, have the conversation. If the answer is no, then you have to do some work internally and decide, maybe non-monogamy is not something I'm interested in because of my partner, and that's something I'll have to let go of. But at the end of the day, once you bring up that topic, you've already dropped the bomb, and the outcome is out of your control. So you have to decide, how important is it to me?
Okay. So let's say they do find their relationship to be important and they kind of don't want to bring it up because they don't feel like their partner's going to react in the correct way. Does that mean that they have to now suppress their own feelings of like their desires in order to stay in that relationship? And is that a good idea?
That is completely dependent on how deeply that person feels about non-monogamy. Now, if I'm in a relationship and I'm in a relationship with a vegan, for example, now I wouldn't be, because eating meat is something that I do a lot and it's not something I'm willing to compromise on. But that's my internal choice, right? That's not something I'm willing to compromise on. If I'm with a vegan and I had already said, yeah, we're vegan together, and suddenly I want to start eating meat, I have to decide, is eating meat that important to my internal sense of self? There's no right or wrong answer. If it is that important to you, that's fine. You have to just take that and run with it. Don't suppress something that is integral to your being. But if it's not, if it's just a preference, if it's just something you're thinking, I wish I could, or I would like to, then yeah, you do have to kind of cut that out and say, hey, my preferences are not more important than my partner.
Right, right. So it's a case of like just being really honest with yourself and how important
Yes.
things are to you, and not necessarily trying to project that onto the other person as to a decision they've got to make, but more of a decision you've got to make going forward in your life. Would you say that's correct? Would you say that's what you're
That's
trying to say?
absolute that's absolutely correct, because you are the person who has had a shift internally. At the end of the day, it is your responsibility on how you want to make this happen for you, how important it is, whether you're willing to drop that bomb on your partner or not. And if you are you willing to take the chance that it might end in the ending of the relationship?
Okay, okay. And on the flip side of that, there are people who are in monogamous relationships. They both like want to be monogamous, but along the line, one of them like has stepped out of the relationship and infidelity has happened. And now they're feeling a sense of guilt about what has happened because their partner hasn't found out, but they're still in the relationship. But they don't want to continue with this sense of guilt about what they've done. So they'd like to open up to their partner and tell them what has happened. But upon wanting to do that, there is a fear that they're going to destroy their relationship. What steps can they take to be able to communicate to their partner about infidelity without necessarily causing like the whole relationship to collapse if that's possible?
Again, when it comes to dropping a large change into a relationship, at the end of the day, there's a whole nother person on the other side of this. You cannot control their reaction. Nothing you can do will predict what they do. You can only do the best you can do. If you're in a situation where you have been, with another person without your partner's permission, and you want to share that with your partner because you're feeling an internal guilt, at this point, I would recommend that you speak to a counselor and have them help you facilitate that conversation because it would help have a more successful resolution. But at the end of the day, it's your partner's decision whether that is a deal breaker for them. And it might be. They might decide to end the relationship based on that. And unfortunately, just like you made the choice to step outside of the bounds of the relationship, they can make a choice to make that step out permanent.
Okay, and some people would say, okay, well, this has happened, but if like I never tell my partner, like they'll never find out, and we can just continue with our relationship, and maybe over time the sense of guilt would go away because it will become such a long time ago. Do you think it's a viable choice to not say anything at all?
At the end of the day, is that morally correct? Is a very complicated kind of conversation, right? Because that's like saying, like, if I commit a crime in the woods and nobody hears me, is it still a crime? Like, at the end of the day, you have done something that has betrayed the trust of your relationship. And if you're hiding it, you already know that your partner is not going to have a positive reaction. You kind of know that. You know that even the most accepting partner in the world is not going to be particularly happy when they hear that, right? So at the end of the day, you're keeping quiet to keep the peace in yourself, to not take the consequences of your actions. Now, it's up to you if morally that aligns with your center. I personally would not choose to do that. I think that would be, I don't think I could live like that. I would feel bad. But I'm not everybody, and that's not everybody's choice. So would I recommend that you just cheat and keep quiet about it? That would not be my recommendation. But at the end of the day, I can't control what anybody else does with their life.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true. And more often than not, the truth does eventually get out. And the longer it's been seen that someone's been lying, the less chance of any kind of rectification of the situation. Like it will be harder to rectify the situation going forward if you've been seen to be lying for a longer period of time. So, yeah, like honesty can be difficult at times, but it is always easier in the long run for everybody, in my opinion. Yeah, so I speak to a lot of different women as a coach, and obviously you speak to a lot of people as well as a matchmaker and coach. A lot of the issues that I find that people bring up is anxiety towards and within relationships. What would you say were some of the causes of anxiety when it comes to relationships, and how can they really be overcome?
Yeah. So when it comes to fear and anxiety in relationships, at the end of the day, it's going to come back to that introspection because the root of your fear and anxiety could be any number of things. And a lot of the times it can be related to personal traumas that we experienced when we were young. Now, the level of your anxiety is going to have an impact on how you want to address it. So if you're feeling extremely anxious to the point where it's debilitating, and it's significantly negatively impacting your life, that's when I would recommend that you need to see a trauma specialist, somebody who has a licensed medical degree who can help you with that. Now, if you're experiencing some more generalized anxiety, some lower level anxiety, like I might even experience going on a date or being in a social setting, then what you can do is work with a coach or even with yourself to sit down and really dig into why am I feeling this way? When I'm sitting and getting ready and I'm picking out my dress for my date and I feel, wow, I look so ugly in this dress and nobody's ever going to like me. And what am I even thinking? I should just take it off and I should go back to bed and forget this ever happened. What is really driving that? Is it that I feel unattractive? Is it that I feel unlovable? Where is that coming from? Is it coming from when I was a child and I got excluded maybe from some social events because I was a little weird? Okay, I think that is probably where that anxiety is coming from. But I have to realize that I've grown a lot since then, and people find me interesting, and I've engaged in many social activities that have gone well since then. So I can draw on that and I can say, hey, last time I went on a date, it actually went pretty okay. So it's probably going to go okay this time too. Let me finish getting ready and go on my date.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
So,
at the end of the day, it comes back to your own personal goals, your own personal trauma. You have to sit down and think it through.
right, right, yeah. So would you say a lot of it comes down to self-judgment as opposed to what's actually going on in reality?
Yes, I think that anxiety is at its root a lie, because anxiety comes from this idea that evolution in evolution, we used to feel anxiety for real physical threats. So you would have anxiety of like, there's a predator around, there's a lion in the room, and we need to run. And in reality, as we've come into a modern age, there is no lion, and your brain is lying to you. So you have to lie back to your brain, or you have to bring reality to it rather, and say, okay, this fear that I'm feeling is construct. And how can I tear down that construct and show the reality of the situation, which is last time I felt this anxious, I survived and I
Right,
still went to the event and I had a great time. So probably that will happen again.
right, right. Yeah, like a lot of people when they like embarking on a new relationship, they tend to feel a lot of butterflies. There's a lot of chemistry going on because they really want to immerse themselves into this new relationship. And upon immersing themselves into this new relationship, some people they start to lose their sense of self in the process. So, in your opinion, how could people immerse themselves in a new relationship without necessarily losing their sense of self in the process?
Yeah. So I personally am against the idea of butterflies in a new relationship, because if you're feeling so much excitement that you're feeling a physiological response, like actual butterflies, like you're shaking, no, get out. You're not being rational. Your brain is lying to you again. So you have to sit and really have a logical discussion with yourself. And I know this isn't fun. I know it's more fun to just throw yourself in and pretend like, rose tinted glasses and everything's great. But if you want a real long-term relationship and if you want real success and a marriage that'll last you the next 30 years, take a step back, take a deep breath, think about, is this person actually someone I want to have in my life? Do they fit the characteristics that I want in a partner? And am I making sure to have time for myself? Am I spending time on self-care, self-growth, self-introspection? All of these things that are going to allow me to maintain my sense of self when I'm engaging in a new relationship. And I know it's not fun to logic your way out of butterflies, but it is necessary.
Right, right. So, like in the case that there is a butterflies that someone is feeling, and they're assessing their partner, and they find that it is a good fit, is it still necessary to um, not immerse themselves and really take time away to let the butterfly settle, or can they go along with it since the person lines up correctly with them?
You can go along to a certain point. I'm not saying that you have to go at any speed other than what feels comfortable for you. If you want to spend every weekend with this guy you just met, or even 5 days a week, that's fine if that's in alignment with your own personal choices. But as long as you're thinking clearly and coherently, and you're taking advice from the people who love you and surround you, and you're making good decisions, if you find that you are compromising your boundaries, then you should be starting to look out. For example, if you're somebody who says, you know what, no intimacy for the first month, right? That is a hard line for you. You've kept that up for a year. That's absolutely end of the line. And then you meet somebody and you suddenly want to start compromising your boundaries. That's when I would start to worry. That's when I would start to think, I am not thinking rationally and I need to take a step back. But if you are maintaining your boundaries, if you're still able to think rationally, then you can go at whatever speed you like, and you can become slightly enmeshed with this person with the responsibility of keeping your head about you.
Yeah, right, right. I would add that, like, there's nothing wrong with letting things happen naturally, but at the same time, understanding that you still need to take time for yourself in order to understand yourself properly is always important, regardless of the situation. But at the same time, like I said, letting things happen naturally, there's nothing particularly wrong with that for anybody either. Now, before dating apps, like the only way we can meet people was in person. It was like that's how we communicate with people. So since dating apps become very popular, a lot of people are using dating apps, but they don't necessarily interact in person as much. So let me ask you a question. If you went to an event and and a man approached you and let you know how he feels about you, versus if you was on a dating app and a man messaged you and let you know how he feel about you, which one is more impactful and more memorable to you?
I think in person is more impactful and more memorable. However, it's so different that there's different factors to consider. So when you're on a dating app, one factor is that you are in control of who you allow in your space, and it allows you to protect your own thoughts and protect your boundaries a little more firmly than when you're in public in the wild. So while it has more impact for someone to approach you in public, it also holds a lot more risk, which can make our responses to such advances a little more advanced, a little more agitated, because you're coming from a position of safety to a position of worry. So it's just such a different environment that it's really hard to give you a one-to-one answer on that. But I would say that in person, I definitely remember all the people who approach me because it doesn't happen as often anymore.
Right. And for people who like they would like to meet people in person, maybe they've been using dating apps and they're fed up of dating apps, they would like to meet someone in person, but they're not sure of where they can go or how they can meet people in a genuine way in person. So they don't know whether to go to the bar, the club, or where they can go. What are some of the ways people can meet in person in a genuine way off a dating app?
So this really depends on who you are, because my number one recommendation when people ask me, where do I go to meet other singles, is where do you go to not meet other singles? What events are you doing? What are you into? What are your hobbies? Do you like to run? Maybe join a running club. Do you really like to go to the gym? Maybe do one of those fitness activities where there's a lot of younger people. Do a Zumba class. I don't know. I don't really do those. But do something that also reflects with your own identity and your own hobbies, because then you're going to meet other people with similar interests and similar hobbies. There's no one-to-one place to go for singles. You can go to a bar, sure, but what if you don't like to drink? Then why are you going to a bar? You're going to meet people that drink.
Right.
If you don't like to run, then why are you going to a running club? You're going to meet people who run. So take a minute, sit down. What do I enjoy? Where will I thrive? And go meet people there.
Right. Essentially living your authentic life and meeting people along the way of that process that also are living their authentic life in the same kind of scenario. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So, like we speak to like the people that we speak to in terms of like as a matchmaker and as a coach, you you hear different issues that they have and you hear different problems that they've been through. And we all learn different things from the people that we speak to all the time. What would you say were some of the biggest things that you've learned as a coach from the people that you've spoken with?
Oh, what an interesting question. So I speak to a lot of people who feel isolated in their dating, people who feel like dating isn't for them, like they are not skilled enough to date. And I think the number one thing I've learned from that is that we all kind of feel this way. Everybody has insecurities, everybody has anxiety, everybody has fears. And I think it's partially social media's fault that we've gotten this way, but we've kind of forgotten that other people are also people. They think just like we do, they have fears just like we do, all of these things. So I think that over the years, as I've talked to clients and as I've worked with clients, it's helped me kind of remember that, wow, we're all complex individuals. And that guy who did approach me in the bar had his own thought process and his own anxieties, and he was probably scared. And it helps me to kind of have more empathy for people and have more interest in who they are, because I remember, they're just like me.
Excellent, excellent. Well, Alexandra, it's been excellent speaking with you. Thank you so much for everything that you shared. Where can people find you, find out more about you, and find out more about what you do?
Absolutely. So you can find my business website for matchmaking at introductionsinc.com, and you can find me on all socials as Matchmaker Alexandra.
Excellent. And for the viewers, all of that information will be in the description, so you can get in touch with Alexandra. Alexandra, once again, thank you so much for coming on. Any final words before we end the session?
No, it's been delightful. Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed our conversation.
You're welcome, Alexandra, and thank you. Thank you very much.
Bye bye.